Hello, and welcome to the follow to my last appearance as a computer-generated character in Joke, a video that has been watched a massive 11 times and met with, shall we say, muted critical acclaim. Whilst trying to remain humorous, my latest video is an attempt to make one or two comments that may add to the debate on patriarchy, feminism and human liberation. It is by way of a fairy tale. I hand you over to my erstwhile avatar. Did you see that I was a bear with a sort of cagoule thing on in that one? I don't normally look like that. Anyway, hello everyone. I have a little story to tell you. It is the story of a little town, nay, a village, and the people in it. Let us start at the beginning. In the beginning there was a word. The word was no. That's a different story altogether. No, that is a fairy story, and one that never seemed to have a happy ending. I'll start again. Once upon a time, that's more like it. I feel much more in the zone now. Once upon a time there was a village, and this village was called Childhood. As with all stories about childhood, the sun constantly shone. Everything was wonderful, and there were lashings of ginger beer to be had at no apparent cost. Our heroes played with nary a care. They paddled in the stream, ran through the fields and laughed and frolicked with utter abandon. They were all friends together, and no one ganged up on anyone else. It was wonderful. Time however passed, as it always will, and our happy people travelled along the pathways of their lives until they came to an altogether more difficult place. This was a small town known as Adolescence, though it was better known by its older name of Teen Town. Where childhood had been idyllic, Teen Town was fraught with difficulties, and our travellers became very unhappy. In Teen Town, our little group began to divide into two distinct groups. The two groups began to lose trust in each other. They did not become enemies, but no longer were they friends. The two groups became known as the Wangers and the Boobies. In other adolescent towns and cities in other lands, they had different names. In some there were guys and chicks, in others there were blokes and birds, and at different times these names changed. However, they always divided along the same lines. In our world they are best known as boys and girls. Now at first they simply split into these two groups, but as time went on the Wangers, who were bigger and a little bit stronger than the Boobies, began to realise that they could be in charge of Teen Town and maybe make the Boobies do what they wanted. But they had no idea how to go about developing this domination, and that may be the end of the story. Then enter a Svengali-like figure, who kept with him a blueprint, which he made available to each set of Wangers as they arrived in Teen Town. This mystical being went by the name of Patriarchy, and he was a very clever soul indeed. When he revealed his blueprint to the Wangers, they could hardly contain their excitement. Indeed, it is on historical record that at least four of them became so overcome they wet themselves, while several others spontaneously ejaculated, leaving them thrilled but also a little scared and confused. What Patriarchy had presented them with was a full set of rules that clearly left the Wangers in complete charge of determining how both Wangers and Boobies should behave, what interests they should have, and crucially, how they could make the Boobies think it was in their best interests when it was clearly designed to favour the Wangers. The clever thing about these rules is that Patriarchy changed them subtly over the decades to take into account changes in technology and other aspects of social development. The cleverest bit was that whenever there were any changes, they were always made to look as if they were for the benefit of the Boobies, but never took anything away from the Wangers. Basically, the rules as set out in the blueprint were simple. They included different levels and types of ambition for Wangers and Boobies, including setting the primary ambition for a Boobie to be gaining the partnership of a Wanger for copulation and making a new family. In this it set Boobie against Boobie. To fully affect this intra-Boobie competition, the rules of Patriarchy set parameters within which the Boobies were to compete. These were many and varied, but central to the rules were a whole raft of admonitions to appearance and concepts of beauty, finely tuned at infinitely subtle levels of sexual availability, and a universal sense of submissiveness. To fully ensure that the Boobies accepted these rules, Patriarchy called on the service of his cousins and close friends A. Marketeer and F. Nick, white supremacy. I will look at their roles and define the lines of the wangers and the boobies as they travel on their journey in a future video. Just as previous travels had done, our band of wangers and boobies fully accepted patriarchy's rules without question, and came to think of them as innate and metaphysical. For those who don't know, metaphysical means timeless, literally beyond specific physical location. Time passed, and the wanderlust took hold of our intrepid band once more, so they journeyed onward. Soon they fetched up in the big city, Adultville. Where Teen Town had been confusing and a bit scary, Adultville was much more settled, but not necessarily a pleasant place. By now the wangers and the boobies had developed their grown-up personas, and yet again this worked against the interest of the boobies, but they failed to realise this. Whilst the wangers remained a coherent group, the boobies had become individually isolated and were split roughly into two groups, universally known as the Madonnas and the Whores. This listed nothing other than their sexual availability and took no account of any other attribute. Crucially, under patriarchy's rules, the boobies had no say in how these definitions were derived. That was left to the wangers. At this point, although there are several chapters remaining, we need to leave our fairy story and look at the real world. Very young boys and girls have little that differentiates between them, although patriarchal social conventions do set them along slightly different paths even at this early age. Puberty leads to massive changes. Deeply entrenched ideas of what is appropriate for a boy and what for a girl leads to a very real division along gender lines. Boys are expected to look forward to the adult world of employment, girls to motherhood. Boys are expected to sow their wild oats, but good girls are supposed to refrain as much as possible. For those girls who buck the trend, lower salaries await them than their male counterparts. And in the UK, perhaps the biggest scandal of all is the quota system of exam grades. That is done to ensure boys are as well represented in good grades as girls. There is an erroneous belief that this is no longer the case, but if you believe that, well, just look at Percy Parker flying past the window. Then there is the vexed question of masculinity and femininity. These are always posited as innate and eternal, but the briefest of cultural and historical glimpses tells us that masculinities and femininities will be a better description, as there are always multiple variants, and further these change over time. The crucial point, however, is that within all these masculinities and femininities, power resides with men rather than women, even down to what women should actually look like. I mentioned the assistance given to patriarchy by his cousins in maintaining this skewed set of social relations. I'll give you one concrete example of how capitalism reinforced the patriarchy. That example is the Spice Girls. Dressed to look like various girl stereotypes, this entertainment act, if you could call it entertainment, shouted girl power at monotonously frequent intervals, whilst never ever doing anything which would challenge the prevailing social orthodoxy. This impacted deeply on young girls who thought they were asserting themselves whilst following a simulacrum. There is much more, but I'm a pensioner, so I need to go now. To leave you on a lighter note, a sort of feminist joke. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. The children of Israel wandered around the desert for 40 years. Even in biblical times, men wouldn't ask for directions. And thank you very much. I'll see you again very, very soon.